You should have the sun and the moon to wear, if I were a king.
Her name conjures up a vision of beauty, glamour, and elegance.
When I saw her, it was like a myth. I mean, wow, a class act.
I'll be seeing you.
You'll be paying me.
Her career spans the history of the entertainment industry in the 20th century, from the era of silent films through the glory days of Hollywood to the golden age of television.
You can't survive through the silent movies and the talkies and television on just having a pretty face. You've got to have a brain behind that face and then be able to act.
Suppose I don't show up tomorrow or ever.
Well, I guess I'd just be lonesome like I was before I met you.
But behind the face of perpetual serenity and grace exists a woman who has sacrificed and suffered.
My mother knows her world and her business better than anyone I've ever known. And she learned it the hard way, in the school of hard knocks.
She has survived one of Hollywood's most surprising scandals to become one of the town's most respected stars. Dignified, beautiful, and strong, Loretta Young is one of Hollywood's true leading ladies. Loretta Young was born Gretchen Michaela Young in Salt Lake City, Utah on January 6, 1913. Her mother, Gladys, had risen above an underprivileged background and emerged as a devout Catholic and proper Southern lady. Gretchen's father, John Earl Young, worked as an auditor for the railroad, which meant the family often had to relocate. But John's wandering was not confined to the road.
Gladys found out that Earl was fooling around with the maid. She knew that she didn't want to put up with a life like that where her husband wasn't being faithful. So she told him, if I never see you again, that will be okay with me.
In 1917, Gladys left her philandering husband and moved with her 4 children to Los Angeles, California. There she borrowed $1,000 from a Catholic bishop and opened up a boarding house.
They did not have a father to support the family, and the way her mother supported herself and her children was to take in boarders. When some people might think that was a deprived life, it really wasn't, because this rich assortment of people, a lot of them actors, would come through the boarding house.
Hollywood's silent film industry was booming, and Gretchen's uncle, who worked at famous Players Lasky movie studio, hired his nieces as extras in the flickers. 4-year-old Gretchen made her film debut in The Only Way, for which she earned $3.50. Her beauty and natural affinity for the camera won her continuing work as a child extra.
Loretta loved it. The other kids were a little self-conscious about getting out there and dancing or doing whatever. Not Loretta. She loved that kind of attention.
On the set of The Primrose Ring, Gretchen met Mae Murray, one of the silent screen's biggest stars. The actress was so taken with the little girl that she asked if she could adopt her. Gladys declined, but did allow her daughter to live with the star temporarily.
Mom viewed Mae Murray as kind of a fairy princess. I mean, here was a woman who was a famous actress at the time, who encompassed her, brought her into her home, brought her into her life, granted her wishes, gave her servants, and gave her presents. Mae Murray had a very important role in showing Mom exactly what you could do if you set your mind to it.
Within a year, Mae Murray and her husband decided to move back east, and Gretchen returned home to her mother's boarding house.
Loretta said at that point she realized that home is not the big mansion. Home is with her mother and the people that she loved.
In 1923, Gladys married a businessman named George Belser, who was a good provider and a devoted family man. With her newfound financial stability, Gladys enrolled her 10-year-old daughter in Ramona Convent School. But Gretchen did not excel as a student, and her formal education would not extend past the 8th grade.
She had a nun by the name of Sister Marina that would say, you've got to learn how to spell and read. And she says, oh, no, I don't, sister. She said, I'm going to be a movie star, and they have secretaries.
By 1926, Gretchen's two older sisters, Polly Ann and Sally Blaine, had blossomed into beautiful young women and were making a name for themselves in the movies. Not wanting to be left behind, Gretchen was anxious to escape the strict confines of her mother's Roman Catholic household and catch up to her sisters and their more glamorous lives.
There was a lot of rivalry between the sisters. They all had the same circle of friends, and they all had aspirations of being a movie star.
When Polly was unavailable for a movie at First National Pictures, Gretchen seized the opportunity and presented herself at the studio. The result was a featured role in Naughty But Nice and a short-term contract with a $50 a week salary. The tenacious 13-year-old was also given a new name, Loretta Young.
From a very early age, she was making money for her family. Her mother, my grandmother, often called her my little breadwinner.
Within 2 years, Loretta was cast opposite one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces. In Laugh, Clown, Laugh, Loretta played Chaney's young ward and the object of his desire. Her undeniable beauty and keen dramatic ability brought her to the attention of both audiences and critics.
You are now listening to a talking moving picture. It is the invention of Dr. Lee DeForest.
By 1928, the young actress had no trouble making the transition to the new talking pictures and appeared in an early promotional film alongside her sister.
Behold, Sally Blaine and Loretta. I'm young. Is Paris still gay? Ooh la la. Some say Jane a French can't seem to pronounce, but ours is so simple. N'est-ce pas?
Loretta quickly became the studio's leading ingenue and was frequently paired with dashing leading men like Douglas Fairbanks Jr. But it was another handsome actor who captured the young woman's heart. While shooting The Second Floor Mystery in 1929, she fell madly in love with 26-year-old divorcee Grant Withers. Impulsively, the couple eloped on January 26, 1930, just weeks after Loretta's 17th birthday. Foregoing the blessings of the church, the couple was wed by a justice of the peace.
She kind of liked the idea of the beautiful fantasy of running off with her leading man. They'd be happy evermore, just like it always was in the films.
Having abandoned her faith by marrying outside the church, Loretta was heartbroken when her distraught mother refused to speak to her. To make matters worse, the young bride discovered that the man she was now married to was as irresponsible as her estranged father. Isolated from her mother, the distressed newlywed sought advice from the family priest, and the severe criticism she received shook her to her very soul.
He said, Loretta, it's better than a stone be tied around your ankle and you be thrown into the ocean than give bad example to people. She'd gone against what her mother said, she'd gone against what the church said, and what she believed morally. It was a big turning point in her life.
After 14 troublesome months with Withers, the 18-year-old actress filed for a secular divorce. Loretta resolved to get her life back on the righteous path and returned once again to the warm embrace of her mother. Over the next 3 years, the intrepid actress made a staggering 27 films. Although mostly B pictures, they provided Loretta the opportunity to acquire a thorough knowledge of lighting, camera angles, and makeup. But while shooting Platinum Blonde in 1931, Loretta received important advice from a young director named Frank Capra.
Capra said, acting is thinking. He said, you have to be in the skin of that character and thinking as that character. And it was like the big green light went on for Loretta, and she saw what acting was about.
Capra's influence was evident in her performance in the romantic fantasy Zoo in Budapest. Her portrayal of a frightened orphan earned the 20-year-old rave reviews and critical acclaim.
Why did I ever run away?
Why did you?
Well, you. You kept telling me to break away, didn't you?
Yes, of course I did.
Well, why did you do it then?
Yes, yes.
I wanted to talk to you. Be with you.
You did?
Yeah. What'd you think?
Oh, I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought maybe we'd get married or something.
It's lots of thinking, isn't it?
The recognition she received for Zoo in Budapest only strengthened Loretta's resolve. She was now more determined than ever to reconcile her desire for romance and glamour with her vow to lead an exemplary life. But sanctity and stardom would be difficult to combine, and the challenge would force Loretta to play the hardest role of her career.
Next Sunday on Get TV.
20-year-old Loretta Young to Columbia Pictures to star opposite Spencer Tracy in Man's Castle, a beguiling Depression-era love story played out in a shantytown on the banks of New York's East River.
Bill, why do you always keep looking through that hole for?
When you're dead, you get a hunk of earth. When you're alive, you want to hang on to your hunk of blue. That's all I got in the world. That's all anybody's got is that hunk of blue.
Bill, what Ira said,
What?
I've been thinking that there couldn't be any heaven much better than this, could there? I mean, when it's quiet all around and we're close like now.
You know, I never noticed it before, but your eyes are sky color, sort of. You got a hunk of blue in each little limb, ain't you?
Immediately taken with each other, the delicate beauty and the brooding, hard-drinking Tracy began an intense and public affair.
The thing that attracted Loretta to Spencer was, quite frankly, how attracted he was to her. It took her about 3 days before she was madly in love with him.
But Loretta had to face the fact that although long separated from his wife, Tracy was a devout Catholic who would never divorce. After considerable soul-searching, the lovesick young woman ended the relationship.
Finally, she got up the courage to write him a letter and just say, I love you, you're all I think about, but I know it has to end. So if you can, call me. If you can't, I'll understand. And she just signed it, me. And he didn't call.
In June of 1933, Loretta signed a contract with Darryl F. Zanuck of 20th Century Pictures. The deal guaranteed her leading roles and a staggering $1,700 a week salary in the midst of the Depression. Loretta was now able to move her mother and sisters into a glamorous mansion in Beverly Hills. But her first leading role in the historical drama House of Rothschild was a disappointment. Critics dismissed Loretta as little more than exquisite set dressing.
You know you're a very conceited young man. You haven't even asked me if I loved you.
Well, don't you?
Yes, I do. I love you more than anything else in the world.
A string of lackluster films followed, and the studio continued to emphasize Loretta's appeal as a glamorous fashion plate.
Oh, we don't want to seem rude, but we've been admiring that beautiful girl at the bar.
She comes here every night, always with a different man, always in a new gown, and always just as beautiful.
Hello, Mick.
Although dissatisfied with the quality of the material, Loretta was gaining respect as a consummate professional.
She felt that, you know, you had to be disciplined, and you had to know your work, and you had to do it well, and you had to be there on time. She was a very diligent worker and very ambitious.
In 1935, Loretta was cast in the studio's adaptation of the Jack London novel, The Call of the Wild. Her co-star was the reigning king of Hollywood, Clark Gable.
The first time she met Clark Gable was on the train on the way to Washington State on location. And right away he's putting the moves on her, which didn't surprise Loretta because this is what leading men did. But this guy's so handsome, he's so charming, and he has this really animalistic kind of sex appeal thing.
Freezing temperatures at the remote location frequently stalled production. The cast and crew were forced to wait out the bad weather, and the two stars became fast friends. Although Gable was married, the relationship quickly turned into a private, though hardly secret, romance.
Let's pull together. 1, 2, 3.
We weren't together.
Before production was completed, columnists were hinting at the behind-the-scenes liaison. But both Loretta and Clark steadfastly denied the rumors of their affair. When the picture wrapped, the two went their separate ways. Loretta's next project was The Crusades for Cecil B. DeMille, and upon its completion, she abruptly demanded time off from her rigorous shooting schedule.
She just said to Darryl Zanuck, "You promised me a vacation right after I started here, and I haven't had one yet, and I've been working relentlessly. Mom and I are going to Europe."
After spending several weeks in England, the actress returned to Los Angeles to begin work on Ramona. But before shooting could begin, the production was postponed at the request of Loretta's doctor.
The story was that she had been exhausted and that she was just burned out and that she just needed to rest. I mean, this is what the fan magazines were reporting.
Gossip columnists hinted at more provocative reasons for Loretta's retreat from the public eye. There was even speculation of a disfiguring accident. But the prevailing rumor was that Loretta Young was pregnant with Clark Gable's child. Taking control of the situation, she granted journalist Dorothy Manners an interview from her sickbed. In the January 1936 issue of Photoplay, the actress explained that she was suffering from an internal condition brought on by overwork, which might require surgery. When Loretta returned to production on Ramona only a few months later, her svelte figure and cool demeanor defied the gossip mongers. The story of Forbidden Love placed the 23-year-old in the title role opposite Don Amici. Though the film garnered only modest reviews, all agreed that Miss Young was breathtaking in Technicolor.
Why, Senorita, there are tears in your eyes.
Are there?
Is it because I'm going away?
Yes. Yes, I suppose so.
Then you won't be angry if I tell you that I love you?
No. I waited to see how you say that. Ever since the first morning when you sang the sunrise here. I told myself he's singing it to me.
I was.
In Private Number, Loretta was again the main character in this tearjerker about a young mother struggling to protect her child.
You were not a servant before you entered the Winfield home, were you?
No.
But you became a servant for the deliberate purpose of attracting their son. Then
That's a lie.
you tricked young Winfield into marrying you.
I object. Objection sustained.
Trying to get money from the Winfields, aren't you?
I'm not trying to get anything for myself, only for my baby. I didn't ask the Winfields for money. They never would have heard from me if they hadn't sent me word they were going to have my marriage annulled. I don't care what they did to me, but I won't have them hurt my baby. I married Dick Winfield because I loved him. I'll always love him. That baby's mine and his, and all the money in the world can't change that.
Loretta was next paired with the strikingly handsome Tyrone Power in a string of light romances. By her own admission, she was always falling in love at first sight. But this time, the man was single, and the feeling was mutual.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'd like to exchange it for something not quite so, well, something perhaps that's a little less,
Would that do?
Oh, that's lovely. I've made to order.
This was a real romance for Loretta, from the standpoint that she really thought that Tyrone was going to ask her to marry, and she was prepared to say yes.
We're such liars.
Now that you mention it, we are.
Why do we go on covering up how we feel about each other? I'm sick of it. I'm sick of pretending we're two charming strangers. We're not strangers. We've meant too much to each other. Oh, Ralph, take me away with you. You're the only real thing that's ever happened to me. And don't let me go this time. Please don't.
On May 31st, 1937, Loretta and Tyrone cemented their star status when they left their imprints at Grauman's Chinese Theater. Their union, however, was less permanent, and the couple soon drifted apart. On June 11th, 1937, Loretta shocked her fans and colleagues when she announced plans to adopt two little girls, Jane, age 3, and a toddler named Judy. But 3 weeks later, the press reported that Loretta had returned the older child to her natural mother and planned to officially adopt only one of the girls, 23-month-old Judy. The movie star's curious decision to become a single mother rekindled old rumors that Young's case of exhaustion a year and a half earlier was in fact a smokescreen to hide her own pregnancy. But the bona fide star ignored the speculation and was ready to start a new life and a new family on her own terms.
People say I'm scared.
Be rewarded with more challenging roles. But the star was sorely disappointed when she was cast in a secondary part in Suez, a story that revolved around her old flame, Tyrone Power, and his new leading lady, both on and off screen, French actress Annabella. If Zanuck's plan was to relegate Loretta to the rank of supporting player, she countered by ensuring that her limited time on screen would not go unnoticed.
She'd go to the costume department and she'd say, I want my dresses in white color instead of pastel, and I want my ball gown a little bigger than everyone else's. During production, the first scene happened and she goes through a doorway and her hoop skirt is too big for the doorway. So they have to stop production and they have to widen all the doorways. Well, that was Mom's way of putting her mark on things.
Loretta was dissatisfied with Zanuck's management of her career and began to refuse the projects he had slated for her.
It was rocky. She went on suspension several times, and she knew that she was only going to have her career if the stories were written for a woman, and she just wasn't getting that from Darryl Zanuck.
Darryl Zanuck was making men's movies, and he had men's stars, you know. She was just like the little bauble that was in this movie, and she wanted to do films that were more woman-oriented. She didn't feel that she was given the parts that she really wanted to play.
In 1939, the disgruntled actress decided not to renew her contract with Fox. Spurned by the willful star, Darryl Zanuck was determined to show Loretta who called the shots.
When Loretta left 20th Century Fox, all of a sudden, no phone calls. All the studio guys got together on Saturday morning and took some big sauna and they played poker. All Darryl would have to say is, you know, no one really wants to hire Loretta Young, do they? And that was all that had to be said.
It was a dark period for Loretta when she found herself gray-listed by the studios, without a man by her side, and with a small child to care for. However, her outward appearance remained unruffled and serene.
That was very difficult for her. She learned to be tough. She learned to stand up for herself.
The resilient young woman now turned to radio for work and found love when she least expected it. Advertising executive Tom Lewis was an available man who was not only stable and secure, he was Catholic.
It was very important for my mother this time to marry a Catholic man. I mean, that was paramount because of her religious upbringing. And so when Dad came into the picture, an Irish Catholic from New York that had a good job and was an executive in the entertainment business, it was too good to pass up, I think.
On July 31st, 1940, 27-year-old Loretta Young and 39-year-old Tom Lewis were wed in a simple private ceremony, attended by family, friends, and thousands of fans. Now secure in her personal life, and with a financial partner by her side, Loretta swallowed her pride and lowered her asking price from $150,000 a picture to $75,000 in an attempt to get off the gray list. Columbia Pictures took the movie star up on her offer And in 1940, Loretta made Doctor Takes a Wife with Ray Milland, followed by He Stayed for Breakfast with Melvyn Douglas. With her career back on track, Loretta flew to Hawaii with Tom for a romantic celebration. But the newlyweds' peaceful idyll was not to last. In December of 1941, only 1 month after Loretta and Tom's visit to Hawaii, the bombing of Pearl Harbor reverberated throughout the country. Tom enlisted in the Army and helped organize the Armed Forces radio service, while Loretta contributed to the war effort in her own personal way.
She would start out in the morning and they'd go from hospital to hospital looking beautiful and fresh. It was her idea to just visit one patient at a time because she really felt that she could touch someone on a very personal basis.
She did feel very responsible as a star. She felt that she was given this gift, this privilege to entertain people, and so she felt that she had to give back.
Hollywood was churning out propaganda movies, and Loretta did her part, appearing in Ladies Courageous and China, as well as making personal appeals to the American public.
We've seen half the world ravaged by a ruthless, brutal force. Women at War Week is a call to arms of all American women to resolve that it won't happen here in the United States or anywhere else in the world ever again.
The war years altered Loretta's life in unexpected ways. She found strength and security in her restored career, solid marriage, and rewarding humanitarian work. She also found joy in motherhood, and in 1944, the Lewises welcomed their first son, Christopher. A year later, a second son, Peter, was born. But as much as Loretta loved being a mother, she was a movie star at heart. In 1947, she accepted the lead in The Farmer's Daughter, a romantic comedy about a Swedish-American farm girl who runs for Congress.
Folks, get ready for a delightful surprise when you see Loretta Young in this entrancing new kind of role. She's beautiful Katie, the farmer's daughter. Headstrong, heartwarming, as stubborn as her Swedish blood could make her.
What can you do, Kathleen?
I preserve meat, candle eggs, dill pickles, smoke ham and bacon. I wait on tables 40 hands at harvest time. And I make glug.
And look who she set her sights for. Joseph Cotton as the touring congressman. So wait and see what's ahead for them when Katie goes to town.
The Farmer's Daughter was one of the biggest box office hits of the year. Both audiences and critics were charmed by Loretta's performance, and the 35-year-old actress received her first nomination for an Academy Award. After 30 years in Hollywood, Loretta found herself stepping up to the podium to accept the Oscar for Best Actress of 1947.
My heart. You know, up until now, presentations of the Academy Awards has been a purely spectator sport for me. However, tonight I dressed for the stage just in case. And as for you, at long last. Good night, and God bless you.
For Loretta Young, it seemed as if all her childhood dreams had come true. But at 35, she feared her days of playing romantic leading ladies were coming to an end. If she was going to survive in Hollywood, she would have to take the future into her own hands.
Cleaning the tub is a back-breaking chore. And
Young was once again in demand, making several films, including the charming and uplifting The Bishop's Wife, opposite David Niven and Cary Grant. Although Loretta was consumed with her work, she did her best to divide her time between her family and her career.
She loved having children, and the time she had at home was great. You've got to understand that her job was being a movie star. I mean, her job was literally putting the food on the table, and we understood that.
She was doing one film right after another. She was working all the time. I knew that I could get her for X amount of hours, and so I would save it all up. But just being with her was special for me.
In 1948, after a 10-year absence, Loretta returned to 20th Century Fox to make Come to the Stable, the poignant story of two nuns struggling to raise money for a children's hospital. The project presented a unique opportunity for the actress to integrate her religious convictions and her film career.
Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, Amen. Dear St. Jude, patron of the impossible and of our holy endeavor, here on this lovely hilltop, with the help of our Lord and his dear servants, we will build your hospital.
Come to the Stable earned Loretta her second Oscar nomination. This time, however, she lost to Olivia de Havilland for her role in The Heiress. But despite her professional accolades, the star was finding interesting material harder to come by. Loretta's next 6 films were unmemorable and unfulfilling, and she was growing restless.
When my father saw these antennas popping up over Los Angeles, he figured, well, it'd be a good idea to get into television, change my mother's career from a movie career into television. She got her Academy Award. She didn't really have any other goal in the movie, so she took that challenge.
Loretta and Tom formed a production company, and in 1953 created a television series called The Loretta Young Show. As the program grew in popularity, audiences eagerly anticipated the star's stylish wardrobe and trademark entrances. Each week, the glamorous Loretta would wear a different spectacular ensemble and sweep through the doorway of her set and into millions of living rooms across the country.
Hello. Do you know the difference between a prejudice and a conviction? You can talk about your convictions without getting mad. Test yourself sometime.
Each week's show dramatized a moral dilemma drawn from Loretta's actual fan mail. The anthology format allowed the veteran actress to stretch herself by playing a wider variety of roles than she had ever been offered in films.
Now, when do I get my kid?
Hey, you've only been on parole 3 months.
I want my kid. You don't seem to understand. She's all I live for.
Then think of her.
I am thinking of her. A kid ought to be with its mother. What are you guys trying to prove around here anyway, huh?
In addition to acting, Loretta shared producing duties with husband Tom and made sure her show reflected her taste and values both in front of and behind the camera.
It was a very male-dominated industry, and a lot of swearing goes on. She doesn't like to hear those words, especially if it had something to do with blaspheming the Lord. She came up with the Loretta's swear box, and every time somebody swore, they'd have to put a quarter in it or a dollar in it. Her idea, of course, was to give whatever money they collected in the swear box to charity.
Loretta was also well known for her generosity towards aspiring actors such as Dennis Hopper and Hugh O'Brien.
If you think you could be happy with a guy who loves you just the way you are and doesn't want you to imitate anybody else, why, tell Albert here to go soak his head in the tar pit and marry me.
Well, now, Larry, I'm awfully sorry you got into this half-hysterical state today.
Albert.
Yes, dear?
Go soak your head in a tar pit.
I was very impressed, not only about the fact that I was meeting Loretta Young, but about how very gracious she was and how warm. And she was such a professional. She was almost like a producer in terms of running the show.
I worked on the show for 2 years. And my mother would be at all the story meetings. She'd look at the dailies and sit with her editor and edit the film. It was her show, and everybody knew it and respected it.
Hard work paid off with television's highest accolade, the Emmy Award. In 1955, Loretta achieved the distinction of being the first woman to win both an Oscar and an Emmy for Best Actress. However, this professional success did not come without a price. Loretta and Tom spent less and less time together. And in 1956, after 16 years of marriage, the Lewises separated. Tom sold out his interest in the show and planned to move to New York. Due to Loretta's demanding schedule, it was agreed that Chris and Peter would go with their father, and Judy would remain in Los Angeles with her mother.
It was tough separating from Mom at the time, but it was the only logical decision if they were going to split up. She didn't handle it well because it wasn't in her plan. but in the long run, she had to produce a television show. And without him, she really had to take over.
By 1960, Loretta was regarded as the first lady of episodic television and a trailblazer for women in this new medium.
When TV Guide did their poll of who was the most influential woman on television, even though they still loved Lucy, it was Loretta that they voted for because of the content of her shows.
But in 1961, after 8 successful seasons and 3 Emmy Awards, NBC canceled the Loretta Young Show. Sponsors wanted to tone down the show's moralistic themes to keep in step with an increasingly sophisticated audience. But a resolute Loretta refused to compromise. She switched to CBS in 1962 for a sitcom called The New Loretta Young Show. But it lasted only 1 season. The actress's survival instincts told her it was time for yet another change. In 1963, Loretta Young walked away from the career to which she had dedicated the last 46 years. Still stunning and full of life, the 50-year-old living legend now faced her greatest challenge: retirement.
Cleaning the tub is a backbreaker.
Out of the limelight, devoting herself to charitable endeavors and philanthropic work. But it would not be long before more personal matters required her attention. Her 31-year-old adopted daughter, Judy, was now a mother herself and needed an answer to the rumors and innuendos about her parentage that had been plaguing her since childhood. Gathering her courage, Judy confronted her mother about the most carefully guarded secrets of Loretta's life.
I flew to Los Angeles and confronted my mother, and she told me the truth, that she indeed was my mother and that Clark Gable was my father.
After 30 years of denials, Loretta Young revealed the incredible details of the public deception to her daughter.
When my mother and father were filming Call of the Wild, all you have to do is look at the film. It's very obvious that these 2 people are very much in love. She was pregnant when she was filming The Crusades. She had me in secret, and then she put me in an orphanage for a while, and then she announced to the world that I was her adopted daughter. It was the only way she could have done it, otherwise she would have lost her career, and so would he. And there's no doubt today that her choice of not going public is right. And that's her choice. It's not for us to judge. It's certainly not for me to judge. She should be respected. She's earned it.
During the next 2 decades, Loretta Young made good on her promise to keep her personal life private and to maintain her retirement from the screen. But in 1986, Loretta surprised everyone when she made a triumphant return to television in the movie of the week, Christmas Eve. Although her performance earned her a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress, the year brought mixed blessings when Loretta's mother, Gladys, died at the age of 98.
If there was one person that Mom loved the best in her whole life, it was her mother, no doubt. She absolutely loved Gladys, and I think the thing that destroyed her the most is when her mother passed away.
Loretta returned to her tireless work in hospices, shelters for the homeless, and veterans' hospitals, and sought solace in her faith in God and in those nearest and dearest to her. Widowed since 1988, Loretta felt free to marry within the church, and in 1993, at the age of 80, she wed one of Hollywood's most celebrated couturiers, 85-year-old Jean-Louis. The couple settled into an idyllic existence in Palm Springs, California. However, in 1994, Loretta's private life was thrust once again into the spotlight when Judy Lewis published a tell-all book entitled Uncommon Knowledge. In it, Loretta's daughter detailed the circumstances of her birth and the convoluted cover-up that followed. The book became a bestseller, and although its painful revelations caused a brief estrangement between mother and daughter, Judy's need to claim her birthright had been satisfied. Another blow to Loretta's otherwise tranquil life came in April of 1997. when her husband of 4 years, Jean-Louis, passed away peacefully in his sleep.
It was a wonderfully successful marriage, and it was a tremendous gift to have had him in her life.
In 1998, Loretta Young is still a vital woman and a fashion icon. She continues her charitable works and has written the foreword to noted fashion historian Sandy Schreier's book, Hollywood, Dressed and Undressed. For nearly 8 decades, Loretta Young has made an indelible mark on the ever-changing entertainment industry. A veteran of over 100 films and a trailblazer in television, she remains a symbol of beauty, serenity, and grace. But behind the glamour and stardom is a woman of substance, whose true beauty lies in her dedication to her family, her faith, and her quest to live a life with purpose.
She's certainly one of the people that, having worked with, that made my life richer. She was a great, gracious lady.
And I think God blessed her with a great amount of talent, a tremendous amount of discipline, and also that other D, you know, determination. And I think it shows in her work and how she lived her life.
Loretta Young is one of these magnificent women of the screen that when she's on the screen, you can't help but take your eyes off of everybody else and just focus on her. She's a great star.
I would have to be blind not to know that she was very special. Her faith is her strength, I think. And she's very strong. She's an extraordinary lady.